All right, here we go. We got Master Donnie and Vanessa Griffin here for Q&A, focusing on some of Master Donnie's experiences with the kids. He's coaching for a very, very long time. Well, let's just start with that. How long you been coaching? What's your jiu-jitsu background?
Coaching since, I've been teaching kids since 1999, the end of 99. So, and actually coaching for competitive athletes, kids and adults since probably 2001.
So 20 years in the coaching game.
Yes.
4 years old.
Oh.
So who are some of, you've obviously been involved in the development of a lot of athletes. So since some of the people watching this might not know who they are, can you name drop a few of the people that you've been influential in bringing up?
I'll go recent to past, probably a little better. Most recently, probably the most popular guy is Jamil Shane Hill-Taylor, 2018 featherweight black belt world champion. But before him, there's Ray Alexander, which is not really before him, it's all in the same group. We have Ryan Villagram. I guess you could say in some ways, if we start really going back, I was influential a little bit as a mentor more so than a coach with the Ryan Hall and Michael Fowler and Julius Park. There's a lot. I mean, we've had a lot of success in the recent years of winning a lot of world titles at the juvenile level, at the blue belt, purple belt, brown belt level. So a lot of medals. So as one of the senior coaches at TLI, I've had a lot of experience working with Tim Spriggs, Muhammad Ali, Heriberto Santos, JT Keenan, all those guys, Andres. Even though wasn't the primary coach for all of those guys, but I would say I had a hand in.
So who, out of those guys, who do you like the best?
Who do I like?
Yeah.
I like my kids who came up in the program. I should say our kids, but I prefer. I don't have a favorite among them.
Of course not.
But and if I did, I couldn't say it. But yeah, the ones who came up through the kid. Obviously, I'm gonna have a tighter connection with those.
Who's your, or when did you start working with like Jamil? What age?
Jamil was, I want to say when I met him, he came at summer camp. He was 9. He didn't really start his jiu-jitsu training. In our school, kids start off in like summer camp. They just do activities and they do self-defense, striking, and things like that. He didn't really start into jiu-jitsu till he was 10, approaching 11, taking jiu-jitsu real serious. But I want to say he was 9. Obviously, I saw the story with me and Jamil is the first day I saw him at summer camp. I was like, hey, who's that kid? He looks like he's going to be sharp. So I kind of spotted him right away. So he kind of started getting a little bit of jiu-jitsu training right away just because I wanted to see where he was at and as far as how well could he learn and was he serious and things like that. And he definitely was. But I don't think me and his parents and his schedule got on the same accord until he was about 10, a little over 10.
So what's it like coaching an athlete from age 9 all the way to a black belt world title?
It was definitely a great experience. I feel like one thing is there's always a plan. There's always like an outline that you have. And of course, throughout those years, things didn't always go the way you planned, but we stayed inside of that outline of what we wanted to do, and it was quite an experience. Like there's a, you got your kid plan when he's a kid, then he goes into the teenage years, and then you have to make some adjustments to that plan, and then you're like, okay, he wants, he's going to stay local, he's going to go to college locally so that he can make this run at the black belt world title. Then we got that plan, so it was definitely a good experience as far as on a technical level, a strategic level, but then also on an emotional level. It was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was very, very cool. I don't know what to say. It was just really, really great how everything ended up. So he's like it's like having a son, bringing your son up. But, Jamil has a great support system. His dad is super supportive. His mother super supportive. So it's like having a son. I call like a martial arts son in a sense. So we go, through all the blood, sweat, and tears from 9 all the way to 21. I think he won his title at 21. It was just a great ride. But the crazy thing is that when it, I didn't get that emotional when it happened. I was more emotional the year before, when he had, it was his first year competing in black belt, and he went out there to fight Cobrinha in the semifinals, and the whole place was erupting, and he's out there, and he's got his decked out, fully sponsored gi on, and he's out there in his mode, and everybody's cheering, and the whole place is quiet and focused and cheering, quiet one moment, cheering the next. The match goes down to a decision, and the whole place is erupting. To me, I was actually more emotional for that, because God, we got him here. This is what he set out to do, and now he is. Right now, there is nobody more popular than this guy on this mat right now. I mean, for that moment at the Worlds, and I was like, wow, we did it. A little small school from Maryland with this local kid who came to martial arts because he needed somewhere to be for summer camp, so yeah. It was, and then of course the following year when he won the Worlds, I never told this to anybody, when he won the Worlds, I actually was holding back tears before the match. It was weird. I was like, oh, this, and then what happened was I was about to lose it before the match, because Muhammad Ali won. Master Lloyd came over, gave me a big hug, and we did it and all this stuff. And I said, we got one more. He's like, you're right. We got one more. We're about to have 2. And I'm sitting there, and I was getting emotional prior to, and then a Ray came and sat down next to me, and I just sucked it all back in. I was like, no, I'm not going like that. You know how that is. So,
jeez. You ruined the
Vanessa,
story.
I'll cut your ringer off. This is crazy. You got to be more professional about that.
I was on the floor over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know whose fault that is.
It's Keith's.
Come on, Keith.
So the whole experience with him in particular, because he was the first one that we took the whole way, and right now he's still the only one. But yeah, and I've had similar experience with Ray and Elijah Dorsey. Actually, I was pretty emotional when he won a juvenile title, because he went through a very rough motivational time during high school, where he wasn't really that committed to jiu-jitsu. He was kind of rebelling, and then he kind of saw the light and came back to it, and then double golded at the World. So it's like that with almost all the kids.
So you talked. Is there anything other than the emotional connection that you have with the athletes that is different between athletes you coach as kids versus athletes you coach as adults? Is it just emotional, or is there other things that make it different?
I think there's more of an attachment, because when you meet them as kids, for the most part, there's normally a certain period of time. Sometimes it's just a period of time. Sometimes it never goes away. I'm sure Coach Vanessa, she's on both sides of this right now, so it's very, she probably has really good insight on this. But when you meet them as a kid, there's a point in time where you are that person's authority, like that, your voice carries so much weight, you know, almost like, and you have to be very responsible with what you say, because, I mean, parents will call me and tell me all the time, like, I can tell such and such to do something, they won't move, they'll give me all kinds of attitude, but if you tell them, you know, they're going to hop to it right away. And yeah, at first it starts off with something like making your bed, but eventually, you know, as they go through the year, you know, the teenage years and things like that, it's a big responsibility, because now you're telling them, like, how to improve their work habits at school, how to avoid, you know, smoking cigarettes, or, you know, doing drugs or alcohol, you know, things like that, or getting involved with the wrong crowd. So you don't have that normally with an adult. When you meet an adult, you're not really outside of the realm of just the martial art. You're not really connecting it to a lot of things.
And you think that that's hard? Like, is that harder, or is that easier, or like?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. For me, in my experience, if you're trying to build a world champion and you need to be vibing and you guys need to be on the same page, it's a lot easier to meet them younger, to have an influence on them, and you know, as long as it's positive and they grow up with you with a positive influence, because when you go through the tough times, you're going to draw on that. You know, I've had moments since, you know, everyone recognizes Jamil, so I've had moments, I mean, there are people out there, New York is the last one I can remember, this guy's like the dynamo, he's like one spider, he's winning his tough matches at the Pans, he's winning all these events and getting all these crazy submissions, but people in the New York tournaments, even Nagas or New York Open, people around the mat have heard me getting on his case, Matt's side, you know, because of the connection, you know, versus I can do that with him. You know, it's not about humiliating him. It's just addressing whatever I felt needed to be addressed, and he's fully zoned in and focused on what I'm saying, because we have a lot of philosophies that we have, and it's not just him, but it's all the kids. But I will, you know, zone in and I'll correct something right then and there. You can't really do that sometimes with someone you met when they were 21 years old, and the second I start talking, they're more worried about, oh my gosh, everyone's looking at you. You know, don't say this thing. You know, there's not that level of trust, that connection of trust.
Right.
You know, whether it be Jamil, whether it be, you know, anybody. You know, and you see that not just with me, but you'll see that, you know, if you go to the Worlds, you know, I've seen Guy and Hoffa, you know, really get in on somebody, and normally when you see them doing that, it's gonna be one of their youth students who's either an adult or they're still a youth. You won't see them barreling into a grown man who's 26, 27 years old who came to them at 24, you know. So I don't know if, you know, I'm being clear on that, but I think in that realm, if you're trying to get a person to the elite level, all the way to world championship, it is better. I think it's easier if you have built a connection with them when they were younger. I think it's definitely a plus. Doesn't mean you can't do it with someone that you met as an adult, but you have to communicate differently.
So I think one of the common things you see in jiu-jitsu nowadays seems to go contradictory to what you're saying, because, you know, a lot of people now, like, they want to program hop, right? So they want to be like, oh, I'm at this program, but I want to try this program, and I want to go to that program. So what do you think is, like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because what you're saying seems to be directly contradictory to that.
So I think, like, especially I see it like some really successful Brazilian athletes I see maybe have moved from a smaller team to a bigger team and have had great success. One guy that comes in particular in my mind is like Kainan Duarte. He was very, very good at Cicero Costa, and then he came over to Atos. But with those type of situations, he's still coming over when he's pretty young. I think he's maybe 18 or 19 years old. And he's already has a foundation. He already knows how to win. Like, I don't think, like, I know it's popular now because people see that. It's like, hey, well, this guy left here and went over here. Or this guy left here and went over here. But most of those guys, when they leave somewhere and they go somewhere else, if they win in the place that they went, if I'm being clear, like if a person leaves A and goes to B, they're already winning when they were at A location. Then they go to B because maybe the opportunity's a little better. Maybe their schools in the U.S. or they have more opportunities to train or they have more opportunities to get sponsored. It's my understanding, and if I'm wrong, you know, I'm sure Muhammad or someone will text me and say you're wrong. But even in Brazil, you have these really, really good schools that are bringing up these kids. There's one school in particular in Manaus that has an unbelievable kids team. But when their kids get older, they always kind of let the kids move off to somewhere that can give them better opportunities because of like the economic side of jiu-jitsu. Like help support them by sending them to more tournaments, giving them a place to live, possibly giving them a wage. So then they go from this school in Manaus and now they end up at Alliance. And now they have Dream Art. Or they end up at Gigo, which is one of our sister schools down in Brazil. You have these situations, but once again, these kids already have been like cultured in the art of winning in jiu-jitsu, and now they're moving to a new location. And even when they go to their new location, they're not going to be successful if they don't click with the new. See, we only see the people that are having success. We're not seeing the kids that, for instance, there's kids that went from Brazil and went to AOJ that are doing amazing. We don't know about the other kids. It's not like they're one for, just like at our school. Everyone knows about Jamil, but they don't know we have a whole bunch of other kids that aren't either that serious about competing or just haven't done what he's done yet. So with this whole new phenomenon, I think it kind of goes into the whole BJJ community, I don't know what that's called. I have an inappropriate name, jock riding or something like that, where you're like, oh, I want to do what he did, or I want to do what Kanon did. Man, he jumped over to Atos and he won a world title. I want to do what the Rotillos did. You know, they went over to AOJ and they got so good. Well, the Rotillos were amazing before they ever went to AOJ. That doesn't mean that AOJ didn't help them get better or didn't have a big influence on their game while they were at AOJ, and then they went from AOJ to Atos. Doesn't mean that Atos doesn't have a big influence on their game now, but they were already winning. They were already very, very good, and then they moved to the next spot, and they remained very, very good. So I think people need to look into that before they start thinking that's the proper trend. I don't think that's the proper trend. I think you're just having these outlier athletes who are very good, who've already learned the culture of winning, and they just go to the next school where there's winners, where there's a winning culture, and they're just fitting in because they already have that culture. They're just like we lost guys from TLI. They've gone somewhere there, and they continue to win. It's like there's no magic. You know, no one's providing a magic. You either have a winning culture at your school or you don't. And now it's just about the athlete, whether they're going to fit. But I think if you're looking at those athletes as an example, understand that they are outliers. I'm using the word right? They're an exception. They're exceptions to the rule. I think on the most part, you're going to see a lot more people fizzle out who use that type of mindset. I'm going to just keep bouncing until I find the whole Burger King, you know, keep moving around. I'm going to spend my money where I want. I really don't agree with that. I think if you found the right school and got to a certain point where you love jiu-jitsu, as long as you haven't been done wrongful in some way, shape, or form. You're going to have disagreements anywhere you go. You spend a lot of time somewhere, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have something you disagree upon. You normally want to work that out, because normally if you love jiu-jitsu enough because of where you're at to switch, you've probably had a very good experience with jiu-jitsu where you're at, you know. And like I said, unless it's just, you know, really bad, but I don't know if I went off course, but.
So what you're saying, if I'm understanding you right, is that the first part of getting the child or the athlete to win, that's that first important step, and that usually requires that connection between coach and athlete.
Well, when I say winning culture, I kind of want to take a step back and also make sure, like, for us, winning culture doesn't mean winning tournaments. Like, I'm going back to the whole, like, are you winning in life? Like, what are the traits of winners? You know, doing the extras, doing what it takes, doing, like, I used to assign all my emails that I sent to parents for years with the best do what the rest won't. You know, that was like my tagline after all that. And I don't even think that's proper grammar. That's not proper grammar, is it? It's won't. Even
You still have your AOL email address?
I do have, but that's not the one I use. That's not the one I use.
Wait,
for
your
parents.
AOL email address still exists?
Yeah, I still
man.
get all my junk mail, all my non-jiu-jitsu stuff goes to my AOL.
All right.
Yeah, so but yeah, the best do what the rest won't. To me, that's kind of what I mean when I say winning culture. You know, just understanding that, and then because you can apply that in anything. And then, but once that's laid down, now when we're talking about the highest level, you know, it's the same in any. I don't care if you're trying to get into an Ivy League school, then you need to be doing the same thing in your academics. The extras that you could mirror those extras to jiu-jitsu workouts and studying. You know, the person that's winning a world title is getting up, doing the extra trainings, doing the strength and conditioning, doing the whatever study they choose to do, the extra drilling, whatever they choose to do, they're doing those extras that the regular person is not doing. Same with a kid who's trying to get in an Ivy League school. They're doing the extra studying, they're taking the extra classes, they're doing the extra preps, they're making sure they score high on their SAT. They're doing all the extras. They're the best do what the rest won't. So, you know, that's what I mean when I say winning culture. But yeah, if we're talking about jiu-jitsu, if jiu-jitsu's the goal, world champion's the goal, then we have it, you know, we have a process laid out for that.
So what common trait other than work ethic do you think all your most successful athletes have had in common? Or is that all?
See, no, there's more. I mean, obviously there's an actual affinity for the art. I mean, a love for the sport and art. And I would say the willingness to compete. I won't say that they love competition at first. They don't have to love it at first. They have to be willing to compete. But the love does have to eventually come into play. They have to love competing to compete at a high level. So I would say those things, along with, you know, the work ethic. Work ethic isn't, I would say that's not absolutely necessary, though. That's something. I got some of the guys who are really good and some girls who are really good who are also really lazy, but they're willing to, you know, because they love the art, because they love to compete, you can use that and leverage that to get them to work hard. You know what I mean? They have to have those things in place, but because without that love, they're not going to do, you know, they're not going to do what needs to be done.
So what do you think, what do you think parents should know about, you know, parents who have kids in jiu-jitsu and maybe the kid has some competitive leanings, right? Wants to be competitively successful. What is something that you think, like, what's the most important thing that you want these parents to know? Like, what do you tell your parents?
With our parents, they have, I feel parents have the toughest job. because they have to really, really, really work hard to remain a parent and make sure they don't cross that line into, because I believe in like a triangle. It's funny with jiu-jitsu, everything's a triangle, right? I believe in a triangle system. You have your instructors or coaches. I always like to say instructors over coaching because I don't like it to, especially when you're dealing with kids, I don't like it to be thought of as an athletic sport. So I'm like instructors. You know, I like when I go to a BJJ school and the students are calling the instructor Mr. or Miss. You know what I mean? You know, our school we have like senior instructors, they call it master or whatever. But it's not a big deal. I just want that formality because it's for the kid to understand and the parent to understand that this is this person is teaching you an art and it's not teaching you how to win a game. All right. So when I hear the word coach, sometimes I'm like, okay, now we're just trying to win a game, right? But anyway, I think it works. All three components are very important. The parent has a very important role to play as far as supporting the child. They have to provide the financial support, and they have to provide moral support, and even more importantly, there has to be a good information transfer between child, parent, instructor. And that those arrows, like if I drew a triangle, you have to have those arrows going all around, because there's a lot of information that a parent is going to receive from their child about what they like, what they don't like, about classes, the instructor, the other kids in the class, the technique that the instructor is not going to get. So the parent has to communicate that to the instructor. Same thing. The instructor is going to get a lot of information sometimes that the parent won't get. The instructor has to be able to communicate that to the parent. So I feel that the parent, it's very easy for an instructor to go like, you know what, I'm not going to deal with the parent. I'm just going to deal with the kid. We're going to be right here. And that works for a while. But there will be a point where it's not going to work anymore. I learned that the hard way. Because I was like, you know what, the parent, you just stay over here and I'm going to work directly with the kid. But it always comes back because that kid turns 15, 16 years old and the parent has no idea what's going on. The parent's like, oh, I've just been sending my kid to martial arts because it's a safe place for them to go and they enjoy it. But I'm sick of paying money now. I don't know I've been out of the loop for 3 years. The kid is loving jiu-jitsu, wants to be a world champion, and the parent's wondering, hey, why aren't you applying to any colleges in Cali? Why aren't you applying to New York? What do you mean you don't want to go to college? You know what I mean? Whatever the conversation is. So that's why the parent has to be involved the whole way. I didn't learn that until 10 years in. First 10 years, I was like, you stay over there. I was like old school martial arts. The kid walks to the temple, learns martial arts, sweep, and the martial arts instructor may not even have ever met the parent. You know what I mean? I was more on that time until I realized, hey, this has to be a working system, and obviously it wasn't that extreme, but and then you add to that the economic factor of what we do. The parent also, like I said, plays a very important part because they have to provide that financial support. They're the ones paying for everything, so they have to have an understanding. My advice to them, though, is stay in their role. Because if they step over the line, meaning most of the time some parents will take the coach's role, it gets very confusing. And there's nothing that's worse for optimal progression than the coach now having to take the parent role, which is to become a nurturer. Because the parent is being overbearing on the kid based on the kid's jiu-jitsu performance or their martial arts performance. They have to, like I said, the parent has, see, if I yell at a kid, I always say this when I talk to a parent, when I have to have this conversation, let's say Vanessa's my student, and I'm yelling at her, right? Man, let's say I'm being a horrible instructor. Your arm bars suck today. You didn't put your hips up. Once again, you didn't grab the leg. This is ridiculous. How many times I gotta tell you? Get on the wall. Do the motorcycle. Clean the toilet. Fix that toilet paper dispenser where you can't grab the you understand? I'm just being a jerk, right? And, you know, she goes into the lobby. Her mom's in the lobby. She goes and cries. And her mom's like, well, you know, Master Donnie has your best interest in heart. Just stay. And then mom can call me later and say, you're being a little hard on her. And then I can be like, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go, because I'm going to get her very, very upset with me. And I have a plan. Now, if I don't have a plan, I just need to get, as an instructor, I need to get myself together, right? But we can work like that. But the problem is if I go, good job, Vanessa, I know you got armbar today. We're going to work on it. See you tomorrow. And then she goes into that lobby and her mom's like, you suck. You need to get your arm bars together. Lift your hips up. Why didn't you grab the leg? What's wrong with the toilet paper dispenser in Crazy 88, by the way? Just a warning. Then she has to, with me, she gets to get in the van, have her mom pat her on the head, maybe go get her some ice cream or whatever, which I hope the parent doesn't do, but even so, a parent can be a parent. But if the parent does that, she's got to sit here and look at her mom with a stank face from the back seat all the way home. Got to go to bed. If you're being an overbearing parent, it's just not. It's dysfunctional. In my opinion, it's dysfunctional for the household. So if you become the coach of your child, who's going to be the parent? There's nobody there to be the parent. That's why. Whenever I get asked that question, I get asked that question a lot. I always say, stay in your role. That's the most important thing you can do. Because if you come into my role, you're gonna turn our great triangle that we have working, our communication triangle, and you're gonna make it dysfunctional. And now the instructor has to become the parent, because now 2 months of this, 3 months of this, a year of this, the kids coming in and they have the daggone crazy kid face, meaning they're depressed, and they come in and then you have to find out what's going on, and they want to quit jiu-jitsu, and then the parents accusing the instructors of making their kids want to quit when they don't know they're creating all the stress at home, and it just becomes this big dysfunctional thing. So I always say, parents, just stay in your role, and then always remember that the instructor has your child's best interest at heart, just like you should have, and your child should be focused on just improving. If you don't have enough trust in the instructor that you don't think they have your child's best interest at heart, then you probably need to revisit being at that academy or having your child involved in a intense program. You maybe need to lower the intensity. And I've had to have that talk with parents in the past too. I think if competition is providing your household with this much stress, maybe you should remove competition and just don't let your child compete. Now, it's hard to do when a kid is really good, but if the parent can't get out of the way, and that goes for instructors too. Instructors got to make sure they don't cross that line sometimes. It's hard. Sometimes instructors, it's very hard for us too, because we're in situations where we want them to never miss class, and we want them to make weight, and we're constantly telling them what to eat and what not to eat. It's very hard sometimes to not cross that line. But like I said, if communication is good, you're gonna if any mistakes are made or anything gets a little bit touchy, and the adults communicate, and everything should work itself out in a perfect world. Doesn't always work like that, but that's what I would say to parents. Just stay in their role, and the instructors stay in their role. The kids, just watch the kid thrive, hopefully.
Do you push all your kids to compete?
I don't push at all. But it's almost like when they make that move and they want to be serious, then we have a discussion. We have a discussion with the kid, and we have a discussion with the parent. Once they're serious, then the intensity goes up. But they always have the ability to back out. But it's hard to tell someone that you don't want to be serious anymore. So, and normally you have the right conversation with the child, you have a right conversation with the parent. They're not going to pull back unless they're really done with competing. Like I said, it's very rare. Like I've had very few kids just all of a sudden no longer want to compete. It happens though.
What do you wish kids knew?
I wish you could give a kid a crystal ball so they could see what the result of the work is going to be. Because they look, like I said, again, instructors got a lot of responsibility because kids work on pure trust. Like they literally, if you tell them to do 100 push-ups, if they can do it, they're going to do it. If you say, hey man, if you do 100 push-ups a day, you're going to win everything. You understand? You got to be careful because they may do 100 push-ups a day and not win. Now you got to explain yourself. That's why I said it's very, like if I could give them a crystal ball and I say, hey man, this is our process and this is what's going to happen. Let's see what your results are going to be. Like, oh, silver at the Worlds. Dang it. Hey, still pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I wish we had a crystal ball and it takes all the pressure away, right? Or we can say, so you're not doing enough because we only got silver, right? That would be the best tool. But again, it comes down to just responsibility of an instructor, making sure that they're using the right verbiage and using the right wording to make sure that they're motivating without setting them up for they're going to fail. So I don't want to say you don't want to set them up for failure because you actually are going to be setting them up for failure. But you just don't want them to fall flat on their face. You want them to understand what the game is. You want them to get them goal-oriented, things like that.
Are the kids that ended up being good adults, did you know they were going to be good from when they were kids, or did they ever have plateaus or setbacks where you were like, man, I don't know if this kid's going to be good, but then they ended up being good, or how?
There's a few things like that I noticed. I don't know if it's if I had my superpower, maybe I would say I'm pretty good at spotting talent as far as the talent needed to be good at combat sports. I'm pretty good at spotting that. I'm not 100%, but there's a couple characteristics that I noticed. A lot of it comes with focus. I think like when people talk about Jamil, the main thing I noticed with him was just how focused he could be at his age, like from the gate. It wasn't even during a class. He was playing dodgeball, right? But I saw like how focused he was. It was like dodgeball / and they transitioned to this was all before class. Just watching how focused he could be with what was going on around him, his surroundings. That was like the big thing for him. But normally it's like little aspects like that. You notice these things. I also notice some of the flags too. Like, so the red flags, I'll see it. The biggest red flag for any kid and adult, jiu-jitsu wise, is entitlement. That's the hardest thing. That doesn't mean it's gonna hold them back, but when I see entitlement, I already know we're gonna hit some rough spots. Entitlement is the biggest flag I see for combat sports, and focus is the best. Like if I want to take something over anything else, it's focus. Over any athletic attribute, any of that. Give me a kid with really good focus, an ability to really zone in on something and be focused, I'll take that over anything, And then if I were going to say, hey, we're in a rough spot, entitlement is the worst. Entitlement is the worst thing. But entitlement is a learned trait. So I always feel like you can unlearn that. Focus isn't always learned. Sometimes a kid is just naturally really laser focused, So I don't know if, sometimes that can be considered a talent, versus, but entitlement is normally like a learned flaw in character that's learned. So I figure if they learned it, they can unlearn it. But now we go back to that triangle. They're entitled for a reason, right? So now is that triangle going to work? Because we're going to take that entitlement away. Jiu-Jitsu takes that away. Because that other kid or that other person that you're rolling with or training with could care less how much you think you should win. They're going to try to bury you. You know what I mean? So Jiu-Jitsu is really good in that regard. But, yeah.
So how do you keep Jiu-Jitsu fun with the kids program? Because everybody here thinks you guys you're running like Navy SEALs Hell Week down there. So how do you split it?
Well, ours is we do a lot of activities. So we do anytime we can come together and do something, I try to make it happen. Even during the pandemic, like if there's UFC fights going on, the kids are like, "Can we watch the fights?" And everyone, and I'm like, "Hey, if your parents are cool with it, let's make it happen." Hit the parents up. Hey, I need a couple dollars because I'm gonna order a lot of food, and we just make it happen. I think kids just like being around each other more than anything else. So it's one thing to be around each other in a class setting, but it's another thing to actually be able to hang out and have fun with each other. So that's kind of been my formula for fun for the last upteenth years, is to have a lot of extracurricular opportunities for them to hang out. And then that includes planned stuff too, like sleepovers and movie nights and things like that. So even, I guess some of those things you can call income generators for the school, but I don't really care about that. I'm more so involved with just building a strong bond and camaraderie amongst them, because they always work better if they're close. They're close with each other. They treat each other like family. Like I went to a wedding last year, and everybody, all the kid Tijan was getting married, and all of his groomsmen except one was all of his childhood friends from Lord Evans Martial Arts. None of them live in his neighborhood. None of them, it wasn't the next door neighbor kid. It wasn't a lot different from me when I was with him. All my close friends were in my neighborhood. So now all these kids' close friends are kids from martial arts. And to this day, I mean, they're 23, 24 years old. They're still, hanging out. They're still arguing. There was a Twitter beef between a couple of them a while ago. And it's just, I mean, they're like family. They're just, it's one of the things I'm most proud of, that I could at least have created an opportunity for that to happen. And Master Lloyd too. I didn't do that by myself, but so yeah, that's how we keep it fun, and constantly trying to just think of different things they can do and be a part of.
You did the van trips too.
Oh, and when we go to tournaments, we try to go. I take as much kids as I can with me on a trip. So you hear about these kids going to Florida. When they win the national championships, they all go down to Florida together and stay in hotels, and they love it. Well, we only compete 8 times a year, so we try to make every tournament that we go to one of those. Because unlike football, baseball, or basketball, or tennis, or whatever, our sport's not that popular. So they don't get that gratification like they do when they go to school. They go, I play football, or, they get to watch their heroes on ESPN. So I try to compensate for that by making it even more fun. So as far as within the sport that they do, they just having a lot of fun. Hey, your football team's not traveling to tournament every, once a month or twice a month sometimes. You guys aren't hanging out in a hotel and swimming, or we once a year we set up a amusement park trip. They're not doing those things. So we try, they do that once a year if they make the national championship. So I try to compensate and make our trips, as many times as we compete during that year. So this year has been a little bit off, obviously, but that's part of our formula too.
Cool. Well, I'd love to have you back again, because I didn't get to some of the other questions, but thank you, Master Donnie, for coming in, and thank you, Coach Vanessa, for
sitting there.
Yes.
Great experience.